you. Well, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay? Good. Well, welcome to American Public Square's annual gala, Evening at the Square. My name is Allan Mueller, and I have the privilege to serve as the community director for the organization. I'm so happy to see all of you tonight. So great to have you. To kick off our event, I want to recognize a number of elected officials who are actually here with us tonight. So, assuming you're here, please stand so that we can recognize you. First, we have Jackson County legislators Manuela Barca IV, Megan Marshall, Deron McGee, Donna Payton, and Sean Smith. Welcome. We also have Kansas City, Missouri Council members Melissa Patterson-Hazley and Kevin O'Neill. Welcome. We have City of Lenexa Mayor Michael Boehm, and I understand today is your last day. Congratulations. And one of the newest members of the Shawnee Mission School Board, Mr. David Westbrook. Welcome. If there are other elected officials with us tonight, would you stand so we can recognize you? There we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I also want to recognize another very special crowd. Those are the members of American Public Square. If you're a member of American Public Square, would you raise your hand? Okay. So first of all, welcome members, and thank you for your support. We cannot do what we do without you, so we're so grateful to you for being here tonight and being with us throughout the year. Welcome. For those of you who are not yet members, I have a deal for you. In your program booklet, you'll find information and a QR code. I hope you'll join us. You can visit us through that QR code or visit us at americanpublicsquare.org/membership. It's very clever, membership. And we hope that you'll become members. So we're just delighted that you're here tonight with us. So as you know, at APS, we seek to convene non-like-minded people to improve the tone and quality of civil discourse and to find actionable paths toward common ground. Evening at the Square is a celebration of that ideal. Hopefully, we can learn to disagree, not necessarily less, but better. Tonight, we're so grateful to their generous donors, sponsors, for making our work possible. You can find a full listing of our sponsors tonight in your program booklet. Please join me in thanking our sponsors. Additionally, you know that events like this do not create themselves. That's certainly true of tonight's event. In particular, I want to thank our amazing co-chairs, Mary and Mark Jorgensen, and Stephanie and Rodney Smith. Amazing partners, amazing partners. And though I have the privilege to stand before you tonight to announce all this wonderful information, as the event coordinator, I could not even have this job unless I had incredible colleagues to hold me accountable and to really support not just me, but our entire team and this event. So I have to thank Ambassador Allan Katz. Oh yes, applause. Our Executive Director, Claire Bishop. And the amazing Cindy Johnston, Tricia Maxfield, and Robin Smith. We also have some incredible interns from William Jewell College that I have to recognize, Jamie Schenk and Ian Wooldridge. Thank you. It's really that team that deserves our appreciation, so thank you for helping me to thank them. And with that, it is a sincere privilege to welcome to the stage our founder, CEO, and board chair, Ambassador Allan Katz, and Executive Director, Claire Bishop. Thank you.
So great to see all these faces tonight. This is incredible. Thank you again for being here. And a big thanks to Allan, who's done a mountain of work to make this evening successful. So she deserves that recognition. Allan and I have a really fun job tonight. So we get to present the Founders Civility Award. The Founders Civility Award was created 3 years ago to recognize the accomplishments of remarkable leaders. Leaders who have demonstrated a commitment to bringing together our diverse community to engage in civil, fact-based dialogue, which is the essence of American public square. Past award recipients have included Reverend Adam Hamilton from United Methodist Church of the Resurrection, who I believe is here tonight. Our founding co-chairs, Mary Block and Leawood Mayor Peggy Dunn, also here. And our original champion, Leo Morton. Tonight, we honor one of our original advisory board members, SuEllen Freed. Woo! SuEllen is a longtime, passionate advocate for children who has worked with more than 75,000 students, educators, administrators, parents, and professionals in 37 states to prevent bullying. She is the founder of Bully Safe USA and has authored 4 books on the topic of bullying, including her latest publication, one that I need to read, called Siblings, Bullying, Betrayal, and Bonding Across the Lifespan. That book was released in 2022. Additionally, she is the co-founder of Reaching Out From Within, a national leader in rehabilitation programs for incarcerated individuals. Originally trained as a dancer, now at age 91, SuEllen is still dancing, singing, and advocating for others. She is the widow of Harvey Freed, the mother of 3 remarkable children, Jeff, Paula, and Mark, who are here with us tonight. And she's the very proud grandmother to 7 socially conscious grandchildren. The beautiful green Power of Kindness button you all received this evening are SuEllen's trademark. I hope you will continue to wear it proudly as she does every day. And as SuEllen does, please consider giving one to someone else when you see them perform an act of kindness. Now, we'll watch this very special video tribute to SuEllen, produced by Connor Sizemore, American Public Square's Civics Education Initiative participant and student at Belton High School.
SuEllen Freed, tonight's Civility Award recipient, has touched the hearts of many.
She's one of the most incredible women that I've ever met in my life.
She expands the energy and brings people together and brings joy.
She's so powerful, I feel like in a subtle way. She does it in a way that's so sweet and soft, but she holds a lot of power.
As she meets with students from University Academy and Belton High School, they can't help but gush over what SuEllen's role on American Public Square has meant to them.
I feel like the second you started speaking, everyone was relieved.
Came into the room and lit it up.
The most memorable thing that I've learned from you is that kindness goes hand in hand with selflessness. You're so selfless. You never think about yourself before you think about the people around you.
Oh my goodness. Look at all those colors and lines. And you spelled my name right.
Her reach has no limit, as alongside youth, she also works with inmates. She has a pivotal role in the program Reaching Out From Within.
Since it began in 1978, she was the co-founder with one of the lifers at the Kansas State Penitentiary.
Coming into the prison, it was such a dark place. The environment is just so much negativity. To go to a meeting of Reaching Out From Within and to see SuEllen, what she brung fuel with that energy, that positive energy that she brought in. It was fuel for us to continue to make it through each day.
This program would not exist without her, and she doesn't say that often, but she has impacted the lives of so many individuals inside the prison, being the grandmother that comes to visit week after week after week for 40 plus years.
Not only is she known locally, but she's also been recognized nationally for her ability to see the humanity in everyone.
Hi, it's Robert Costa with CBS News. Congratulations, SuEllen, on a life well lived, a career that has set an example for so many others about selfless service in the United States. You have given so much and inspired so many. We're wishing you all the best.
Her intelligence and understanding for others in the love for everybody, it's outstanding. I am addicted to personal transformation.
So, friends, let us recognize Connor Sizemore for an outstanding video. Connor, raise your hand. Where are you? There he is, over there. Thank you. In 2020, following a highly polarizing presidential election, I issued a challenge to our community in a column that I wrote to the Kansas City Star called the Coming Together Project. The task was this: if you voted for Trump, find someone who voted for Biden. If you voted for Biden, find someone who voted for Trump. Engage them in a real conversation to understand why they did what they did. Don't judge them because of their choice. Understand that they did what they did for reasons that they thought were right for the nation as well as for themselves. Begin to listen to them and to what they're saying and seek to understand their perspective. You need neither change your mind nor try to change theirs. That isn't the point. Try to build a trusting relationship. It isn't easy, but it can happen. While reaching out to others who don't share our perspectives may seem insignificant to our bigger problems, the effort matters more than one might think. No one person or organization alone can repair our tattered social fabric. It can only be done town by town, block by block, relationship by relationship. One person who took me up on the challenge was SuEllen Freed. That should be no surprise. To her very core, SuEllen embodies the spirit of the Coming Together Project. It is my great honor and privilege to present the 2023 American Public Square Founders Civility Award to my friend SuEllen Freed. SuEllen, thank you for demonstrating through your actions the ideals of American Public Square. You are an inspiration to us all.
There is no other organization that I would rather be honored by than American Public Square. We are living in a time of great pain and horror, and in our midst is the opportunity for us to come together and share such a longing that everyone in this room has for truth and civility. What a gift to be part of such a magnificent collection of human hearts. There are 3 people here tonight that are very extraordinary, and they are my children. Jeff, Paul, and Mark, would you please stand and wave to everyone? And they have produced 7 of the most incredible grandchildren on the face of the earth. So please know how much I love you and how much I've enjoyed being with you. As Allan said, we were all given an opportunity to find somebody who voted differently than we did. And it took me 3 times to find a person who would be willing to talk to me because I had voted differently. But we found something very interesting in common: the musical Oklahoma. I encourage every single one of you to reach out to somebody who voted differently and see one special thing that puts you together in a way you could never have imagined. He became a very dear friend of mine. Another privilege, oh, such a privilege. I was connected last year to a group of 36 students from 6 high schools from all over the community who were brought together by American Public Square, and at their first meeting, they had to identify a controversial issue. This is the topic they came up with: abortion. American Public Square had been giving programs for 9 years, and every time they tried to find a controversy to bring to the public, somebody would say, abortion. And they would say, whew, that's too controversial. We can't handle that. But those 36 students ended up presenting a panel, an audience, a standing room only audience, gave 2 standing ovations, one for the panel that was absolutely enthralling, and the second one to the students who had put that program together. Are there any students from that magnificent program here tonight? If so, would you please stand? Where are you, students? Way in the back. It was absolutely an incredible evening. And I am excited to think about all the years I have ahead of me to share with every single one of you who we ache, we long to have a world that has more peace, that has more caring and empathy and compassion. And you wouldn't be here tonight if you weren't one of the people who do that every single minute of every single day. I am so honored to be in your presence. I look forward to all the times I will be meeting you in the future, when we will be trying to find ways to discover something very special, something very good about the people we come in contact with. I was once told that there is an angel and a beast in each of us. And what we need to do is feed the angel and starve the beast. I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life being with you and sharing your hunger for a world we deserve. Many thanks to American Public Square for giving us this kind of opportunity to get to know and care and be and work together. Thank you very much.
Please join me in another round of applause for Ms. SuEllen. Wow. Good evening. Good evening. I know you're mesmerized. My name is Stephen E. Smith. My husband, Rodney, and I are delighted to serve as honorary co-chairs for Evening at the Square 2023. We want to welcome you here and thank you for supporting American Public Square. Allow me a few moments to share thoughts on the role that APS plays in our community and why Rodney and I choose to be involved with this organization. And SuEllen, you said it here before me, that there is power in civil discourse. APS reminds us to choose curiosity over immediate judgment. In our world today, civil discourse is ever present. The American Public Square provides a productive and healthy alternative. Their platform allows neighbors from across various backgrounds to be curious and to learn together. And I appreciate that. The other is, in this platform, we get to relearn that difference doesn't have to equate to disdain. We can all take up Ambassador Allan on his reminder to meet people who think differently. In fact, I believe our ability to be able to connect in commonalities and be able to navigate and to value our differences is a true superpower, can actually help us get us through. And then for those of you that were outside before we joined inside, there are some really cool people at the square. If you haven't gotten a chance, look around, look at who's here. This is a really great crowd. And so it's important to be able to connect and engage with people that may have different experiences from you. So once again, I look forward to tonight's discussion, and I welcome you and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mary Jorgensen. In addition to being a proud board member of American Public Square, I, along with my husband Mark, am happy to also serve as a co-chair for tonight's program. Longtime friend of American Public Square and award-winning journalist, Margaret Talev, is a Kramer Director of the Syracuse University Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, a joint effort of the Newhouse School and Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs. Based in Washington, D.C., Margaret joined Syracuse University following a 30-year career covering American politics and the White House. As a White House correspondent, she covered President Trump, Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign, Barack Obama's 2008 and 2012 campaigns, and President Obama's 2 terms in the White House and Congress. In addition to her role in the Newhouse School, Margaret is also a senior contributor at Axios and a CNN political analyst. Together with Allan, Margaret will moderate the discussion with our special guests, David Axelrod and Michael Steele. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rodney Smith, and I'm also a board member of American Public Square, and I get the honor of introducing our featured guests tonight. David Axelrod is an American political strategist and commentator. He is also the former chief strategist and senior advisor to President Obama. Axelrod was the founding director of the University of Chicago's non-partisan Institute of Politics and currently serves as Distinguished Fellow at the University of Chicago, a senior political commentator for CNN, and the host of the Axe Files podcast. A former political writer for the Chicago Tribune, David produced media strategy and advertising for 150 campaigns across the United States, culminating in President Obama's historic elections. Axelrod is also the author of the New York Times best-selling memoir, Believer, My 40 Years in Politics. Michael Steele made history as the first African-American elected to statewide office when he was elected Lieutenant Governor of Maryland in 2003. He did it again with his subsequent chairmanship of the Republican National Committee in 2009. During his leadership, the RNC broke fundraising records and won the biggest pickup of House seats since 1938. His commitment to grassroots organization and party building produced 12 governorships and the greatest share of the state legislative seats since 1928. Michael is a political analyst for MSNBC and the host of the Michael Steele Podcast. He is the author of Right Now, a 12-step program for defeating the Obama agenda, and co-author of the Recovering Politicians 12-Step Program to Survive Crisis.
Pretty good. Let's. My name is Mark Jorgensen, and it's great to see a full auditorium tonight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your support. Those of you who have attended American Public Square events in the past will recognize this slip as an APS question card, which you may have received on your way into the auditorium. If you have a question, please write it down and hold it up. A volunteer will come by, and then the volunteer will deliver it to Claire Bishop, who is our roving reporter, and she will ask your questions of David and Michael. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for your participation. Enjoy the event.
Good evening. My technical assistant here was very helpful.
Thank you.
Right. The quick question I have is the first event we ever had was, I always ask this, I'm sorry, in October of 2014. How many of you were at that event? Raise your hand. Well, we've grown a little since then. That's good. Okay. The first question I'd like to get this thing started, and my question goes to first David and then to Michael. We've been doing this now. We're entering our 10th year. We're trying to have moderated civil conversations among people who have a different perspective on very controversial issues, whether it's abortion, gun control, reparations, take your pick. Are we, given what's going on in the country, are we just sort of like, is there any point in our continuing to do what we do?
Allan, I need to talk to you about your fundraising appeal here. I honestly, and the reason I'm here is I think it's more crucial than ever. I worry about our country because we're supposed to be the United States of America, and everything seems to be pushing us apart. We live in, kind of a social media time, and social media is controlled by these algorithms, and the great inspiration of these algorithms is that they can keep people online, outrage, alienation, fear are the things that really keep people engaged, and you drive them into a silo, and everybody outside the silo is considered alien and even threatening, and that has been sort of replicated in our politics. It's even replicated. I did a podcast in the last few days with a journalist who Margaret knows well, Tim Alberta from The Atlantic, and he wrote a book called The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory, and it's about the capture of the evangelical church by Christian nationalists. And one thing struck me, which he wrote about, that a lot of the pastors knew that the things that they were saying were not right, but they also knew that it put people in the seats. And so we're all sort of swimming in that same pool here. And I think it is completely antithetical to the democratic experience, which prizes the things that we share if it works properly and helps us work through our divisions. So I think this is a really extraordinary program, and it's an important mission. And yeah, it's harder now than ever, but it's also more important now than ever. And let me just say hi to all these people are my friends. Margaret covered the 2008 Obama campaign. We weren't always friends then. No, I want to talk to you about that later. And Michael and I know each other well. I heard all his great accomplishments in the 2010 election.
We won.
Yes. I want to talk to you about that later also.
We won the battle, you won the war.
And I've actually been in Allan's home when his home was the ambassador's residence in Lisbon. So it's good to be among old friends, and I'm very much glad to be here with you.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's good to see everybody. How y'all doing? Y'all doing good? You doing good? You feeling good? You sure? Ambassador, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much. And of course, my friend David, it's great to be with you. David gave me a job when I was a down and out former Republican chairman, trying to find love anywhere I could. And he offered me this little glimmer of hope at a little place called Chicago with his IOP program. And I had a blast. And I admired David because we were political opponents in the 2008 battle. Me supporting John McCain and certainly Barack Obama for David. But it was really kind of a nice full circle moment when he called me up and said, "Hey, I have an idea." And it was really old school of you to do that, because that's how it used to be. We would do the battle on the field, and then off the field, we sit down and figure out how can we do better and be better together. And so I always appreciated that, and that moment in my life is prominently on my resume. Because it was an important opportunity that spoke to how I was raised, both by my mom and my daddy, and politically. So, Ambassador, for you, Allan, for this program, to have these kinds of conversations is a testament to what's still important. And I suspect all of you feel that and know that instinctively, intuitively. That's why you're here. But at the same time, you're scared as hell. And you're worried and you're concerned about where the country's headed, the kind of leaders who are emerging, and what your neighbors and even a few family members are smoking. Because it got to be something to explain the crazy. But as you've already heard this evening, the crazy, as we may want to call it, it's just humans being humans. And so part of it is how we dialogue with each other. That's why we're here this evening, to have this conversation, and to try to put a finger in understanding exactly what we have to do now as individuals and as a community, and most importantly as a country. And I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and it's great to see all of you guys, too. So it's hard to shake the reporter's instinct, so as I was enjoying my one beverage pre-show, I spoke to a lot of you across the party lines and said, what's the one question that you want to know? Or if you get to ask a question, what are you going to ask? Which I'm about to steal now. Or what do you want me to ask? And the most common thread that I heard from a lot of you who are interested in Liz Cheney's forthcoming book is if Donald Trump were to be reelected to another term, could the U.S., could the Republic endure? And what I want to ask you both is, Is that the right question, or do you find that to be like an alarmist question? Is it the wrong question? You understand the gist of the question in any case. How are you framing your thinking about all of that, and how much of this is about one person versus the sentiments and feelings of a decent chunk of the country that have buoyed this person?
Michael, you can start, but I just want to thank you, Margaret, for a nice light opener.
Right.
Can the Republic survive?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling that question. So you actually, Margaret, asked the right question, because if the answer is Donald Trump and a second term, we've already messed up. At that point, it's moot. It doesn't matter.
Why do you say that?
The reason I say that is because the man's told us what he's going to do. Some of y'all going in concentration camps in Texas, right? Some of y'all are going to have the IRS and the Department of Justice up your behind like tomorrow morning. He's telling you. The thing to understand about Donald Trump is he will always tell you what he wants to do because he doesn't think you can stop him. And guess what? He's been proven right so far. Right? Emoluments clause, anybody? How does your son-in-law walk out of the White House with a $2 billion contract with the Saudi Arabians? How does and why is our justice system bending over backwards to give him every avenue possible to run his damn mouth while he's under federal criminal indictment, calling out judges, clerks, and others? So if the answer is Donald Trump is in the White House, y'all messed up. Y'all messed up. All of us messed up. And so the real question for me in this moment is, what is the country prepared to do with the danger they see in front of it? Ignore it? Excuse it away? Confront it? What are you prepared to do? Because he doesn't think he can be stopped. And so far he hasn't been. Not politically by his party, not so far by impeachments. How the hell do you get impeached twice? And yet, polls right now have him tied or beating Joe Biden because Joe Biden's too old. Really? That's the go-to, to put an authoritarian autocrat who literally told us he wants to tear up the Constitution to make him president, and that's a better solution than an 81-year-old man who's trying to help the country get past the bullshit. So it's on y'all. It's on all of us as a country to understand what this moment is about. So if the question is Donald Trump in 2025, the answer is we lost. We lost.
Okay, now you've heard the Republican perspective.
Well done, brother.
So, look, first of all, you're wrong about one thing. Donald Trump was stopped once, and he was stopped by the American people. And in a democracy, that is the most awesome power. And the question is whether the American people will mobilize, as you suggest, to stop it. But the danger, you know, I'm old enough to have lived through a lot of changes of administration. And in normal times, I would be sad if the Democrat lost. I would have preferred the Democrat to win. But I didn't go to sleep terrified. And the problem with Donald Trump, I mean, I'll tell you this story. When we when we won in 2008, we were in the transition. George W. Bush, about whom we said very few nice things during that campaign, could not have been more cordial, could not have been more helpful to us. He didn't do that because he loved what we said. He did it because he felt he was the trustee of the democracy and that he needed to hand it over to the next person in good condition and give them the chance to move the country forward. And even on the day of the inauguration, I mean, he could not have been more encouraging to me personally and to others. Donald Trump does not believe in rules or laws or norms or institutions, all of which are absolutely essential to a functioning democracy. He thinks those are for suckers. He thinks that the strong, that the way the world is the Hunger Games, the strong take what they want, the weak fall away. That is a death knell for a functioning democracy, and we've seen hints of this around the world. This is not just an American phenomenon, although he is the most flamboyant example of it, and he is a master at exploiting those problems, those not problems, but those the fears and angers and outrage. He's the apotheosis of that kind of philosophy. So now, but to your question, Margaret, I am, as everyone in this room is, frightened about the prospect. I'm not convinced that the prospect's going to happen. But I also, the reason that Joe Biden is president today isn't just that Americans voted for him, it's also that the institutions held. The people who were running elections ran them fairly, the courts, even Trump-appointed judges upheld these elections. And so I'm not prepared to say it's the end if he wins, but I don't want to test that proposition because he's not bringing General Mattis this time, he's bringing General Flynn, okay? He's not bringing, the crew that was with him the first time, he's bringing, a gang of apparatchiks, and they've made very clear, as Michael said, what they're going to do. So I don't want to test the proposition, and ultimately he's right, it's not on anyone but us and the American people because you get the government that you deliver. And the question is whether the American people will deliver in this election.
Okay, so let me just, having heard this very sunny projection for what's coming.
Hey, I held out. I at least said that the democracy might survive.
Well, that's true. You did. So you get an extra point. But
okay, I was holding back actually.
So on that
I was just trying to warm y'all up a little bit.
On that optimistic note, let me just ask this question because this organization is built upon the proposition that civil discourse actually can exist. And by having civil discourse on controversial issues and learning to listen to someone with whom you disagree can improve the whole nature of the conversation and the whole tenor of a community. So with what you both have just described, where we have Donald Trump and his approach, we have a Democratic Party who is enunciating the notion the only way perhaps to win is to sort of scorched earth against Donald Trump. How do we sort of get past, how do we not keep this from continuing to dominate the only way people communicate?
We have, and I was alluding to this before, we have to, first of all, reject this perverse sense of incentives that we have that basically reward division, reward outrage, reward anger. And, these are major forces pushing against us. But the other thing is we have to recognize that there are bigger things than, the blue, the red, and that we share a common humanity. I was telling a story to these guys earlier. Some years ago, I read Karl Rove's autobiography, and I had never met him. And toward the beginning of the book, I learned that Karl had lost his mother to suicide, and I had lost my father to suicide. And I called Carl, and I said, we've got a lot of differences, but we've got this thing in common, and if you and I went and talked about this together, it would bring a lot of attention to the cause of suicide prevention and mental health. And we did, and we did a number of events together. We've done a lot of other things together since. I don't agree with Carl on many, many, many things, but we are friends. And we can have a discussion and disagree. Sometimes he gets frustrated with me, sometimes I get frustrated with him. He started yelling at me during an event some months ago, and I'm trying to calm him down, and he says, and he sort of jokingly said, "Why are you touching me?" And I said, "I'm trying to find the off button." I have neighbors in rural Michigan. I have a home in rural Michigan. I'm quite sure almost all of them had voted for Trump, but they talk about their lives, they talk about their kids, they talk about their concerns, and we have a relationship because we get out of our silos, and we resist that pressure to be pushed into those silos. We need to somehow appeal to each other's common humanity and get past this sort of performative, syndrome that we now face, the sort of silo syndrome that says everybody in my silo is good and everybody outside is threatening and menacing and bad. So I know I'm, Allan, continuing to describe the problem, but there are exercises, and we've done them at the Institute of Politics, where we take 10 students from, by the way, we were instructed to give short answers, so just keep in mind.
That didn't go
this,
well, go ahead.
No, it just, they don't know what a long answer really sounds like. But we, after the 2016 election, because I was so struck by the way my neighbors talked about the election in Chicago, and my neighbors in Michigan talked about them, we created something called Bridging the Divide. And we take a cohort of students from the University of Chicago, a cohort of students from Eureka College in Central Illinois, where Ronald Reagan attended, and a cohort of students from Arupe College, which is a 2-year college in Chicago with a lot of immigrant students. And they spend a weekend together downstate in rural areas talking to people about their lives and their concerns. They spend a weekend in Chicago doing the same. We have focus groups in each place where they sit behind the screen and listen to voters talk about stuff, and it's very jarring to hear. And they spend a lot of time talking to each other. And it is remarkable, Allan, to see how these young people work through their sort of reflexive positions when they start hearing each other's stories and relating to each other as human beings. And I'd love to figure out a way to scale that somehow. But your program is at least another effort to do that. We just have to find a way to scale it because we have to solve this.
If I could, real quick on that latter point, starting there, I would say we don't have to scale it because we used to do it. We always used to do it. I grew up in Washington, D.C. My whole life there, from the very beginning moments in politics, even to the present day. And what I saw as a young kid when I would go to Capitol Hill, and I remember when I was, preteen, me and my crew used to go down to the Hill and we'd take a liter of Coke was a big deal then because they just come up with this idea of a liter of soda. And it was like, oh yeah, great, and a big bag of potato chips. And we go to Capitol Hill and we'd sit on the steps around 6 or 7 o'clock in the afternoon, and the police officers would come by and dip into the Coke and the chips, and we talk. But what I noticed and what I learned and what I watched were members of Congress who would leave the building talking to each other, engaging with each other. What I also would learn over the years is that those same members would share family experiences and stories because their families were here in town. They went to church together. Their kids went to school together. They dealt with problems together that weren't related to a congressional bill. You could go to any haunt in DC, Prime Rib or various versions of adult beverage locations, and you would find a Democrat and Republican senator, member of the House, in a corner having a conversation, talking. That's gone. In fact, it's verboten. I've talked to I serve on the Bipartisan Policy Center board, and we have various programs in which we're working policy with members of Congress. And one of them is where we try to have members spend a day in each other's districts, so you kind of get to know why this bill is important and what a particular bill means and what it will do. You know how hard it is to get a member in a car with another member? The ethics rules are designed not to allow that kind of engagement. The leadership frowns on it. If you reach across the aisle today, you got to explain yourself to your caucus tomorrow. So to what you're saying, David, the reality of it is we did that and decided we didn't want to do that anymore, because that's what we used to do for about 70 years. And then all of a sudden, we stop. And what we have to get at is why. Why is it so hard for a member from Mississippi to have a conversation with a member from New York about health care?
Well, you know the answer. A big part of the answer is we used to have competitive districts, and primaries weren't the only thing a member had to care about. Right. And so now these members fear the most, because most of these members, their first priority is to get reelected. I always say that there's a reason that Profiles in Courage was such a thin volume. They want to get reelected, and the biggest threat comes from the most strident voices in either party. It's particularly virulent on the Republican side right now, and it's augmented by social media, by ideological cable, by all of that.
But can I just finish that point though? That break happened before we had Twitter. That break happened before we had.
Yeah, no, it happened.
Laptops.
I think it started with Newt Gingrich. I think that was a line of demarcation. In which, and his basic view was, this is the enemy. These are not the loyal opposition. We're not the loyal. These are enemies. We're out to defeat them. But this was all augmented, Michael, by first Fox News and all kinds of mutations of that. So there are all kinds of forces that support that environment. I do think there are structural things we can do to maybe change that, ranked choice voting and, nonpartisan primaries. And there are structural things that could help. But ultimately, this is a democracy, and what would help most is if people rose up and said, we don't want that system, and start participating in primaries and start voting against extreme voices. But again, they're being riled up by the media environments. In those silos, you are informed, you are affirmed, but not always informed. And everybody shares your point of view. And everybody who doesn't and lives outside the silo is in the Gingrichian formulation, an enemy. And, so we have to be aware of that, and we have to keep talking about it, and we have to defeat that.
So I was going to ask you about your friendship with Karl Rove, but you answered that question. So then I was going to talk to you about political polarization, and you started to answer my next question. I'm going to try to grab some of it back, though. There are systemic reasons for a lot of the polarization, or systemic structures that fuel a lot of the polarization, and that fuel, in some cases, minority rule. We could be talking about anything from the Electoral College to gerrymandering, to the primary system, to the two-party system. But the system is the system, and it's hard to understand how either major party is going to blink, especially in states where you don't have strong, direct democracy laws or ballot access laws. So operating within the system in which we exist, how can voters use the election system as it exists to kind of change the process? Like, what do you guys think of the idea of third-party candidates? What do you think about the idea of switching your registration, whichever party you're in order to vote in the other party's primary and try to moderate the candidates that you're getting? Like, what kind of tactics are there, and what do you like and what do you not like?
I'll speak on that out of the box as a former county, state, and national chairman and a candidate. So I've kind of touched various elements of that question. And my experience is one that boils down to just blow the whole thing up. Let's have some fun with it. Seriously, let's have fun with it. Why aren't we pressing our Congress to make voting Election Day a national holiday? Why aren't we pressing to have our Congress move Election Day from the darkest, damnedest, wettest, coldest time of the year to May or April or spring? March, it used to be in March. We used to do that in March. Why aren't we pressing our Congress to expand the franchise as opposed to retracting it?
You mean more members of Congress? Is that what you're talking about?
More members of Congress, number one. But even more so, why aren't we pressing our state legislatures to stop restricting our access to the ballot box? Because the Constitution rests that power with them. So, I mean, there's a lot we can do. We just don't want to do it. I don't remember the protests when Georgia started carving back voting rights. I don't remember that. I don't remember the hue and cry to the Supreme Court decision that says that states now can pretty much take my vote as a black man and throw it in the trash can. I don't remember. Anyone get upset about that? Oh, it hasn't happened to you yet? Is that the problem? So the reality is, again, the most important words you need to take away from every document that relates to the founding of this country are three. We, the people. It is how our founders empowered the government. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Right? Not we, the government, we, the president, we, the Congress, we, the Supreme Court. And yet we sit on our behinds and we complain and we moan and we groan and then we wonder why stuff happens. So yes, ranked choice voting, Final Five voting. I'm very much involved in the national popular vote effort to turn our presidential cycle, our presidential elections into an opportunity where your votes count. And that's what we all need to do as citizens, is to decide that the men and women we put in power need to do what we want them to do. I mean, how many people in this room think the Democratic and Republican parties want everyone in this room to vote? I don't see any hands going up. So what does that tell you? That we accept a system that doesn't want your participation. Wow. When I was RNC chairman, I made a proposal real quick, last point, because I know I'm supposed to keep this short. I'm sorry.
Might as well go with it now.
I go with it. I'll just go with it. I made a proposal to the Republican National Committee on a number of fronts. One, that we should no longer abide by the status quo of Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, And at that time, we didn't have a fourth state. I got to add Nevada, working with Tim, because the Democrats had 4, we had 3. And so we added for the 2012 cycle the fourth state. But the reality of it is, I wanted to reform our primary. My recommendation was a little bit extreme, some consider, because I said, why do we really need primaries? Right? Really, why do you need them? Anyone tell me why you need a primary? You can just do final 5 right out. Everybody in the pool, top 5, go to a general ballot in May. Cut our elections down from 2 friggin' years to 8 months. What? Oh, because there are a lot of people getting paid big money. Trust me, I paid them. So the reality of it is we can reform this system. We're not locked into this. There's nothing in our Constitution or our founding documents that say we have to have a primary and that Iowa has to be the first state in the union to vote. The Democrats broke with that, and I applaud them for that. It's out-of-the-box thinking. I tried it in 2010 and got fired for it, but among other things. But the point is we need to stress test the system and push it to do what we needed to do to elect the best and the brightest, instead of complaining about the worst and the weak.
Let me see if I can provide a reality check. Because, I mean, everything you said is pleasing, and I think, I would agree with many things.
What you make it, David.
No. There's a thing called the Constitution, okay? All right, so you want to change to, you want to go to...
What's the Constitution say about
just a second, Michael. Give me my 10 minutes. You want to do away with the electoral system?
No, I did not. Did I say that? Thank you. Did you hear me say that?
Did you say that popular vote should determine
I said
an election?
I wanted. Do you know what the national popular vote is?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Wait. No, Michael. Go ahead.
The national popular vote is a contract that the states make amongst themselves to agree that the winner of the national popular vote, the person who gets the most votes...
I know it. I understand
get
this.
Our electoral votes.
Yeah.
And let me finish, since you asked the question, so everybody knows.
Okay.
We are now in this compact, and by the way, the compact is just like the lottery, folks. The states can do it. It is constitutional. States do it with the lottery. That's how you get to play Powerball in Kansas and use Maryland money when you win. Okay? Because the states have contracted to allow you to do that.
Just say. So what Michael's talking about, this magical thing that we can do.
We're 65 votes away from getting it done.
This magical thing that we can do is we can, each state can agree to assign their electoral votes to the national winner. Isn't that it?
Yes. And
well, just say it like that. It's quicker.
No, it's because it's not only, but it's quicker, but you're not being serious about it.
I think I am being serious about it. Listen, I'm all for these changes. We have large parts of it. Listen, we have a Congress right now, a Senate, where only 3 members in each party represent their states that voted for the other candidate, okay? So all the red states have red state senators, blue state senators. A lot of these changes, I understand the compact. If you can get there, great. But the Electoral College is part of the Constitution.
Yes, and we support
this is a workaround. This is a workaround.
It's not a workaround, David. If you understand what it is, it actually uses the Electoral College because the Electoral College, the 270 Electoral College votes are still needed by that candidate in order to get Maryland's 10 electoral votes.
It's a workaround because...
how is it a workaround?
Because a state may vote one way and the country may vote another. And the point of the Electoral College is to allow the states to express themselves.
They do. So what? A Democrat who wins the popular vote suddenly gets the Electoral College votes from Mississippi, or a Republican who wins the Electoral College vote gets Maryland's 10 electoral? How does that break the system?
Well, ask the people in Mississippi, or ask the people in...
They still voted for who they voted for, David.
No. I don't want to get down. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I want to make a different point.
The point is, the legislatures approve this, people. That's what I'm saying. That the legislatures are the ones who engage. My point is, bottom line, I don't give a rat's patootie if you like this process or this particular plan or not.
I'm just questioning whether you can get it done.
Yes, we're 65 votes away from getting it done after 20 years of trying. What
does that mean, 65 votes?
We're 205. We have states totaling 205 electoral votes, college votes, right now in the compact.
And do you think
we need 65, which is about 4 or 5 states.
Let me ask you a question about this. Do you think this will bring the country closer together?
You know why?
If a discrete number of states decide that they're going to go in that direction?
It's not a discrete number of states, because every state will continue to do what every states do. It's just those states have decided we're going to give our electoral college votes. That's an act of the legislature, a law signed by the governor, which, by the way, the Constitution says they can do and should do, that they can, when they do that, it opens up the process. Guess what happens? Guess what happens when a candidate doesn't have to just worry about becoming the president of the battleground states? They have to take their behind, if they're Republican, to California. Why? Because they need to upsize their vote out of California to get a national popular vote total.
I'm not questioning the merits of the idea.
Well, you just asked what the outcome was. That's the outcome.
I want to step in, because this explains to me why this is so complicated. Two people who really care about civil discourse are having a hard time agreeing on what reforms are realistic and can happen. But what I want to ask you before we go to the audience questions is, we know what Michael Steele's ideas are and what he's trying. If you are going to be more sort of realpolitik and in the moment and say, this is the reality today, in 2024, in the election we're about to enter, what 2 or 3 things within the existing system, for all of its flaws, can people do, David first and then you,
no, that's not a good question.
To maximize their ability to break some of these kind of polarized blockades that stop us from coming together?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing they can do is participate. I mean, and I know everybody here will do that, but I mean, we need massive participation in these elections, and not just in the general election, but in primary elections. We need to each become agents of mobilization and understand who among us hasn't been participating and get them to participate. I mean, I think that's a large portion of that. We need to serve each of us as fact checkers against this torrent of misinformation that we're going to be, and disinformation that we're going to be facing. I think that is important, that we raise our level of literacy when it comes to the stuff that we're getting in our silos, and that we know other people are getting in their silos. So, I mean, those are 2 things. But I just want to, and apart from our little exchange about Michael's wish list, I want to talk about something else, which is we ought to understand that, as I said, this is a global phenomenon. This rift between rural and urban, the divisions around, cultural differences and so on. This is, we've seen sort of a quasi or crypto or neo-fascist, whatever you want to call them, a candidate elected in Denmark recently, in the Dutch elections, I should say, in Argentina. This is a phenomenon. We have to ask ourselves, what is happening that is radicalizing people, and and how do we reach them? I mean, one of my critiques of my own party is that the Democratic Party has become more and more a kind of metropolitan, college-educated party. And it still has its same commitment to working people and so on. But when we talk about voters in these rural areas, there is a kind of sort of, we approach them as Margaret Mead approached the natives, sort of like, we're here to help you. We want you to be more like us. And there is a fundamental sort of disdain and disrespect associated with that. So if we're talking, Allan, about dialogue, I think we have to be open to dialogue, and we have to approach people and understand, because there are genuine concerns that people have, there are problems that they have, and we ought to engage those problems and we ought to engage those concerns. Donald Trump isn't. He's just playing to outrage and resentment. He's not going to solve those problems.
But you're talking about separating a candidate from the motivations of some of the people who support that candidate, and to understand the complexities of what they're looking for and why they're dissatisfied with the status quo.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. I feel very strongly about climate change. I suspect a lot of people in this room do. There you go. And yet, I'm very, very aware that if you go to someone and say, you need to do this, this is our moral obligation to our children, our grandchildren, so on, I deeply feel that as well. But if you're someone who's made your living, and your parents have before you and so on, extracting stuff from the ground, that becomes an existential issue for you too. So that ought to be sort of where the conversation begins. How do we solve this existential problem for the world and our country as well, and without creating this enormous dislocation in your lives? How do we do that? We need to start having conversations like that, and instead of, too often we go to battle stations, we dismiss people who are on the other side. Now look, is there a core of voters who Donald Trump mobilizes who are beyond anyone's reach because they're motivated by things that we can't address? Racism and white supremacism and so on. Absolutely. But there are also a lot of voters out there who could go either way but want to feel it. So I just think we have to make a bigger effort. It's not, I mentioned structural stuff. Structural stuff is important. But I also think we need to have a greater effort to kind of understand each other in this country.
And humanity, yeah.
Speaking of hearing from other people,
he says with relief.
We have some questions from Claire. I can't see you, but you're over there, and you want to tell us what some of the audience questions?
Woo-wee! I got to tell you, there are lots of questions from the folks in this audience.
And
so we will not
call
get
this
to
a
all of them.
lightning round, guys. Okay.
Yeah. Do I have permission to ask? Oh, good. More coming hot. Hold on a second. Okay, we're going to start here with something that's sure not to spark any further debate among our featured guests. Is it time, and is it practical for there to be a third party? If so, how could it happen?
Well, my view, in the current environment, we started off by talking about the apocalyptic prospects for 2024 if Trump got elected. My view is at this moment, third-party candidates are much more likely to help him than certainly than Biden. Donald Trump has a high floor and a low ceiling, and if you lower the ceiling enough to reach his threshold, you improve his chances of getting elected. And I know there are a lot of well-meaning people who think that this is an option. I think that the reality is you've got two candidates about whom there are questions. Let me just say parenthetically, I believe Joe Biden has been a great president. I think he's done things that are generationally important. I didn't do it it wasn't meant to be an applause line, but, and I think honestly, you mentioned the age issue before. I think that the point is that it's not the age of the man, but the age of the ideas. And are we going to elect a president who's thinking about not their own future, but the future of our kids, our grandkids, and the world? Biden is doing that. I think you ought to be frank about that. Look, neither he nor Trump are going to be around all that long. I mean, that's the reality. This isn't about their future, it's about our future. I just think a third party will be very, very, I think Trump would welcome these third parties. And you see it in polling. I mean, it's marginal. Trump does a point or two better when third parties are introduced. But remember, he only won the presidency on the strength of 3 states that he won by, I think, an aggregate 41,000 votes. So maybe someday there'd be a third party option that would be a receptacle for, people who feel alienated from both parties that could bring about real change. I don't think that's the solution for 2024.
I, real quick, would say, going back to one of the other things that was on my wish list, more third parties, fourth parties, fifth parties, open up the system. But I agree with David, this is not the moment in which you want to do that. You don't experiment or open up that particular avenue when there is such a danger of falling into something far worse. So I know all the folks who are involved in all of the efforts right now across the country, from No Labels, Nancy Jacobson, to the Forward Party, and everything in between. I've had conversations with every last one of them. To No Labels, I asked one question to Nancy and anyone that she told me to talk to, and that is, tell me the state you win. Tell me which state you take electoral votes from Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Because if you can tell me that state, then you may be in the game.
Yeah, No Labels.
But they don't have a state that they can win. That's number one. Number two, the concept of introducing that into this mix right now is problematic on a number of levels. So I just think right now we should just say verboten no.
These third parties may elect a president in 2024, but it's not going to be their candidate. It's going to be either a Republican or a Democrat.
Let's continue with our lightning round, and maybe if you want to do if you want to read 2 or 3 questions real quick at the same time,
sure.
Then we can lightning round those.
Yes. Okay, so I got several questions along these lines for the Republicans in the room. If not Trump, then who would represent Republicans' values? Okay.
Don't answer it yet.
Okay. This is another one. This election feels like a choice between life and death for some communities. How does discourse look? If you imagine civil discourse, for example, during the Holocaust, how do we do this when people's lives are on the line?
Okay, and let's do one more. We can save that one for last.
Okay, all right. We're going to come back. If you need me to read it again, I will. Oh, I really want to ask this one. It's a little bit longer, but I think you can end with this. I'm currently teaching Animal Farm to my 8th grade students, and the allegory and allusions to modern politics is not lost on them. With that said, what advice would you give to an educator navigating media literacy and student advocacy and balancing multiple perspectives while also directly calling out threats to democracy? I'm sorry, that was a big one for the end. I'm leaving.
We've got Republic. No, I can do it in 30 seconds or less, actually. Not complicated. First, anyone else other than Trump right now, if they decide to stand up and take out the orange Jesus, then you're good. Now, I didn't say that. That was quoted in Liz's book. So that's one. Chris Christie, any of them would be fine, and I'd have no problem supporting them in the battle over ideas and policy. 2, with respect to
civil discourse in
apocalyptic times. Just tell people what you think and how you feel, and be honest about truth. And just tell folks, when you hear the crazy and the insane, just say, that's not right. This is what is truth. This is what is truth. Keep the truth in front of your conversation at all times, because only you can do that. And if you don't, then you become consumed by the lies and the fears of others. The third piece, in terms of educators and so forth, teach the history. Just teach the truth again. Critical race theory, people, is nothing to be afraid of. And by the way, none of your grandkids in the 6th grade are learning it, okay? Understand what it is. Understand what's out there. You cannot impair the future generation by impairing their learning.
So, I don't know whether you were saying that those guys reflect that you would support any of those candidates in a general election.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying they asked which ones would, and those Chris Christie and Nikki Haley and any of the.
I mean,
ones
I
who are
think any.
currently
I hope I would hope the Republican Party would nominate a candidate who does have a regard for rules and laws and norms and institutions. I was alarmed that everybody on the debate stage but Christie put their hands up and said they would be for
Except
Trump.
for Christie, and the governor, I got that.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't want to.
But they ain't Trump, so that's
listen.
that was the question.
He's in a category by himself.
I was
the
just answering
second
the
question, which was kind of an alarming question, but one I understand, actually concerns me because yes, I think the stakes are dramatic. And, if our institutions aren't strong enough to deal with a president who's ready to take a sledgehammer to them, then the consequences of that are, history has shown us what the consequences of that are. But I'm also worried about, and maybe, I don't know if people will misinterpret this, part of the problem is everything gets raised to the level of DEFCON 1, and everything is treated now apocalyptically. You go on to these right-wing sites and some left-wing, and it's like our lives are at stake. And what worries me about this is that if you believe that, then it basically legitimates anything. I mean, one of the great dangers of Trump is he's telling people they are coming for you. They're going to take, your weapons. They're going to take your, and I think that we saw some of them marching on the Capitol, and they engaged in an insurrection on January 6th. So somehow we have to fight this fight without kind of engaging in this process of where we raise everything to DEFCON 1, and people feel legitimated in resorting to violence. Bob Kagan from the Post just wrote a piece on this, but I heard him speak to a group, and he said, I think either way we're going to have violence in the street, maybe a civil war after the 2024 election. That is not where we should be headed. We should be headed to strengthening our institutions, trying to have these kind of conversations that you're talking about, trying to rediscover ourselves as Americans, not being driven deeper and deeper into these silos. So I really appreciate the spirit of the question, but it worries me that we're all being sort of led by Trump into our different camps, and I think there's danger in that. And yes, of course, I think our students, I grew up in the New York City public schools, and a large part of who I am today is because I had teachers in those schools who exposed me to so many different things about history and about contemporary society. It was a turbulent time back then in the 1960s, and I just learned so much. And I realized that politics is a vital, vital thing that allows us in a democracy to grab the wheel of history and turn it and in the direction we think is right. Our kids need to know that. And we can't have politicians deciding what our children should be learning. I'd like to leave that to educators.
Okay, I'm told that we're just about out of time. And I don't want to leave without, there's one question I've been sort of wondering. I'd like to get a reaction from both of you. I think, as somebody who grew up in the 60s and as somebody who marched in the 60s on a variety of different issues, I look at what's going on now in terms of people shouting down speakers. In fact, I was told by a friend, when I told him about American Public Square, he said, well, you could never do this in New York or Boston or Washington or San Francisco because you couldn't have a program that people would not disrupt. Is that where we are?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that we just had a forum on the campus of the university at the Institute of Politics on the Middle East, and we had two Israeli historians and two Palestinian historians talking about the history of the conflict. And there's no doubt it was the room, there was tension in the room, but no one was disrupted. Questions were respectful. The speakers were, there was tension there, but the culture of the room took hold. And the question is, can we create a culture that allows for that kind of dialogue? And again, it goes back to the point I was making before. You can have righteous feelings about something, but it doesn't legitimate, sort of some of the behaviors that we've seen. And I'll tell you, we had Van Jones, one of my colleagues from CNN, was at the IOP, and it was several weeks after the 2016 election, and one of our, Bob Costa, was a fellow. He had Corey Lewandowski, who had been Trump's campaign manager, in his seminar, and there was 150 people demonstrating outside. There was a silent demonstration in the room, and then people left. It turned out to be a really stirring and interesting dialogue. But someone asked Van a week later when he came, would you have allowed that? And I think they expected him to say no. And Van said, listen, our responsibility to you on this campus is to protect you from physical harm. It's not to protect you from ideas you don't like or that you find even reprehensible. He said, I don't want you to be safe from those. I want you to be strong. I want you to learn how to contend with those ideas. And here on this campus, this is the gym. This is where you learn how to be strong. And I thought that was the most profound construction that I have heard on this. We want dialogue. We don't want to shout each other down. Win on the strength of your... Now, I may have disproven it, Michael, by yelling at you, but win on the strength of your ideas, not by shouting people down.
It speaks real quick to the emotions we bring to these conversations. No one expects you to leave you at home when you come into a room like this. No one expects you to check out when you hear something incendiary, inflammatory, offensive, or that you really, really like. What is expected is that you behave yourself. It's how your mama raised you, right? That's generally what the accepted norm is. But we've moved off of that because we've now been given permission by our politicians and other institutions to behave badly. The incentives are wrong. To David's point about coming onto a college campus, and to your question, Ambassador, you could have this conversation in New York. You could have this conversation in LA. Don't think just because it's in a big city, oh my God, everybody's going to show up with their hair on fire. Trust me, I've been to some small towns, and there's been a lot of hair that's been burnt.
I think you can look at us and you can see that.
Yeah, you can. So, just the final point is, there are forces that want you to be afraid of raising the question and also providing the answer. Don't be. That is how we begin to turn the corner on a lot of this stuff, is to show the resiliency of the American spirit and the idea that the First Amendment gives us, the Eighth Amendment gives us freedom of association, that the 14th Amendment gives us, all of the rights that are inalienable to us. Use them to assert not power over one another, but to remind each other why we're stuck here together. And the only way it's going to work being stuck here together is if you do what my mama told me as a young boy. Shut up and listen.
Before we turn this back to Ambassador Katz and to the students who are ambassadors here tonight, I did also want to say one of the things that my colleagues and I at Syracuse and at our Institute for Democracy and Journalism and Citizenship are thinking about, and I know that Allan and American Public Square are thinking about, is what you can do. I mean, you are here tonight, obviously, because you care about this issue and you want to feel like you can do something. And I do think that, I'm not going to ask for any commitments here, but as you leave tonight and you're thinking about whether to throw up your hands or how to further this discussion, I think everyone can kind of have their own institute or their own diplomatic outreach in your own lives. You can test ways to talk to family members that you think are getting bad information or aren't understanding an issue right, or maybe it involves listening to them and trying to figure out why they feel the way they feel. And maybe sort of like you and Karl Rove, you will reach an understanding about something that you were sure about before and are less sure about. And maybe that gap and that doubt and that question will lead you to a better place. So I think it's not just for politicians or strategists or like dorky professors or people on a stage to think about. I think the answer to this is for everybody to do something about it and stop waiting for somebody else to do something about it.
Thank you, and because we have been fortunate enough to have students involved with everything that we do, we're going to let them close the program tonight.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Shank, and I'm here with my colleague, Ian Wooldridge. We are students at William Jewell College and interns with American Public Square. As we close out tonight's evening at the Square, I would like to leave you with some words from Bill Bishop and Robert Cushing from their book, The Big Sort. In a country that is divided by economic prospects, by years of education, by the look and feel of what constitutes a family, and by political persuasion, we continue to believe that there might be a more important message we all need to hear. The message that people living in a democracy must understand, more than any other message, is that there are families who aren't just like you. They don't live like you, they don't have families like yours, and they don't think like you. They may not live in your neighborhood, but this is their country too.
Everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Most of our programming is free and open to the public. This is made possible by American Public Square members. To that end, to launch our 10-year anniversary celebration and thank our membership, our next APS event will be a members-only 2024 kickoff on Wednesday, January 24th at Unity Temple on the Plaza. If you would like to be there, please register for or renew your membership. There's a QR code in your program booklet to make membership easy to complete, and a membership registration table is available to you on your way out of the auditorium. We hope to see you then and at other American Public Square programs very soon. Please visit us at americanpublicsquare.org to learn more. Good night.